Now, I reckon farmers around Australia are getting a rough deal at the moment. They're quite rightly outraged over the federal government's ban on live sheep. Now, that legislation went through the Senate on Monday, and the government is planning to have that in place by 2028. Now, farmers are going to campaign against it during the next election. Now, I imagine in particular in West Australia, where Labor hold quite a few seats, the farmers are going to be campaigning very hard. As I said, the ban will come into effect in May of 2028. I've seen the Agriculture Minister, Murray Watt, going, oh, well, you know, this will give the industry enough time to transition. He tried to make the point that it's an industry in decline. The farmers really violently disagree. Joining me now, and we've spoken to him on Friday nights before, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Farmers Federation, Charlie Thomas. Charlie, great to see you again. Murray Watt saying, oh, well, it's an industry in decline. It's gone down around 90%. Does it really matter? Can you explain to us why it does matter?
Thanks, Steve. I mean, he couldn't be more wrong. The 2028 deadline is an absolute disaster for industry. We spelt that out very clearly all the way through the election and post after he made this ridiculous announcement. What that means for producers in WA is they don't have enough time to transition the genetics of their flock for us to get the additional processing capacity in place that the government says will create new jobs in Australia. None of that work will be done by the time 2028 rolls around. So what this means effectively, and we've already seen this reflected in the numbers, is people will start getting out of sheep altogether, moving into other production systems, potentially like cropping, and in some instances walking off the land altogether. And what that means is, in fact, less jobs in these small farming communities in WA, nothing coming to take their place, and an awful lot of hurt. The merits of this haven't been tested at all. All we've had in recent weeks is a sham parliamentary inquiry through the House of Representatives, which was gave farmers 4 days to have their say. It had 2 public hearings, very open and shut consultation process with a predetermined outcome, and there's really been no thorough testing, no economic analysis of the jobs impacts and the flow and impacts of this for these regional communities, no actual assessment of the animal welfare outcomes. And because we know what the answer is there, we know the answer is that these countries will not shift to chilled and boxed meat. They will simply shift supply to source live sheep from countries with zero animal welfare standards. So this is a decision where the animals will suffer, the economy in WA will suffer, and our trade relationships, which have been built up over many, many years in the Middle East, will suffer too.
Charlie, potentially an even bigger issue, and this is the issue about visas and backpackers who would spend normally time working in the bush, particularly on those orchard-type operations where they're used for seasonal work. I heard a cherry picker the other day, a cherry orchardist the other day saying, well, mate, I may as well pack up. Are you going to make any inroads on this backpacker change? Because it's going to be really dangerous for the farming community, isn't it?
It's a real concern, Steve. It's coming in 2 phases. So one has actually taken effect this week. So UK backpackers are already off the hook in terms of doing this 88 days of specified work in the regions. They make up about a quarter of all the backpackers, the working holiday makers in Australia at any given time. So that's a massive hit already in place this week. And so the flow and impacts of that are sort of yet to be felt, but we expect that will be significant. And now the government's considering, through its migration review process, going further, looking at whether we basically delete this specified work requirement for these visas for people regardless of the country they come from. Now, we've been really clear to the government, if you do this and do it in a way that doesn't provide us with a realistic alternative in terms of an overseas workforce to come in and do these jobs, farming communities will be decimated. And when we're talking about backpackers, it's not just about the work they do. You know, they do significant work. There's 120,000 of them in the country at any one time. They do about 4.1 million hours worth of work each year. But it's not just getting the job done. It's what they bring to these local towns, and they bring dollars.
Charlie Thomas, always a great pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure. Thanks, Steve.